Welcome to the Back on Track Achieving Healthy Weight Loss podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alicia Shelly. Now, have you ever thought that maybe you can't lose weight or that it's just not possible? Like you lost weight before, but it's just not coming off? Well, I totally understand because I've been in that situation before. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Debbie Weiss. And she's going to share with us her story of how she was able to not only lose weight, but then also be able to maintain it as well. Now, just a little bit more about Debbie. Debbie is a lifelong strategist, a life strategist, and the host of the Maybe I Can podcast and author of the On Second Thought, Maybe I Can. She also manages a thriving insurance agency and her charming online store called A Sprinkle of Heart. Welcome to the podcast, Debbie. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here because this is a subject near and dear and a major part of my life. So I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Thank you. Well, before we get started, would you mind maybe just sharing with us kind of your story and how your struggles and your obstacles that you face?
Well, I can tell you that my struggles started when I was born because my parents would always remind me that I was born at 11:40 a.m. right in time for lunch. And I was a chubby girl from the beginning in a thin family. Both my parents were very thin. I have a brother 4 years younger. As a child and a teen, he was extremely thin. And what was funny is all of my extended family, my aunt, my uncle, they all had weight problems, my cousins. And I always felt like I was in the wrong family because they couldn't understand. They couldn't relate to what I was feeling. And I was so unhappy as a little girl, and I have memories at like 5 years old, 3 years old, even feeling like I was being judged for my weight. And so my mother started hiding food, and there were all these hiding spots, and everybody except me knew where they were. And of course, they were hiding treats and snacks and those kind of things. And whenever I'd look for them because she was feeding me, and depending on your age, I don't even know if they still make Melba toast, but I was allowed for breakfast to have 2 dry pieces of Melba toast with diet Kraft Bake American cheese, 1 piece cut in half. So it went on each piece of the Melba toast. So I can tell you that I was starving.
Yeah.
And I looked for those snacks. And I remember every time I found them, I'd think to myself, only have a little bit. And then the next thing you knew, there was only 2 cookies left or, 3 chips left in the bag. And then inevitably somebody would find the bag or the box, and it would be the interrogation. Who ate these? And, just more shame. And like so many of us, my whole life was just the yo-yo dieting thing. And I never could understand why I was cursed with this problem. And, everything revolved around my weight. I didn't want to be seen because I knew if I was seen, I was judged. And so I didn't want to speak up, and I never wanted to be noticed. And, as a teenager and a young woman in my 20s, I definitely knew that the opposite sex wouldn't pay any attention to me because of my size, unless it happened to be that one moment in time where I, weighed less than usual because I never got to whatever that elusive goal weight I had in my mind was. And even when I got close, it lasted for about a day. And then the journey back up the scale began again. And that pretty much happened all the way until around the age of 50. So I'll stop there and you talk.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate just the transparency, because sometimes as parents, you want to do the best for your kids, but sometimes what you're trying to do can actually promote that shame. And in a child who's young, at 5, you said that you remembered feeling this way. When do you feel like, I know you said you felt this way until the age of 50, but do you feel like you ever got out of that shell, even with as a young adult, or was it just really until you hit 50 where you kind of got out of your shell?
I think I was forced to get out of my shell when I was 17, I became my father's caregiver. My father had a massive stroke and survived, and my parents soon divorced, and there was nobody else really but me. He has my aunt, but, she had her own family and lived in a different state, so I was basically his caregiver from that age. And when I became his caregiver, it forced me, or at least in my mind, it forced me to speak up and become noticed, because I wasn't doing it for me, I was doing it for him. And so if I had to start to speak to doctors or insurance people or places he was going to live, it was only me and he was all I had. So it actually forced me to find my voice. And, as I then went on and I wound up switching careers in my 30s and starting my own insurance agency, which was different from what I had done in the past. And it was really rough. But once I got past it, I kind of had to step up. And when my oldest son was born, he was diagnosed on the autistic spectrum at 2. And if anybody has children, you don't even care what you look like. You are going to do and say whatever you need to for your children. And that's what I did. So I think, yes, I did certainly find my voice before the age of 50, but I never lost the shame of the way I looked. I just was seen.
Can you share with us kind of how you made that transition? You mentioned in your book, you're like, on second thought, maybe I can do this. What kind of triggered that transition? What led you to saying, maybe I can do?
So I don't think that I know. I didn't consciously say that. Around the age of 50, for me, that was a pivotal year where I think I just took a hard look at my life and what it had been up until that point and thought, if I were to die today, would I have regrets? And 1,000% I would. And it wasn't just about my weight. It was about a lot of things in my life. And I thought, I don't want to be that person, hopefully many, many years from now, who is on their deathbed looking back, regretting, why didn't I? And I realized I was the only one who could change that. And so I first decided to start with my weight because I wasn't at my heaviest, but I was pretty close, and I needed to lose at least 100 pounds. And as you get older, now you start realizing, it's a little more about my health and how I look, that now they're kind of 50-50 or, at least equal. And so I decided, okay, for the umpteenth time, I'm going to go back to Weight Watchers, because Weight Watchers for me had been something that I'd always been fairly successful and found, if I hate to say easier than some of the other options out there. But I said, this time I'm going to try something different. Instead of going and saying to myself, well, I have to lose 25 pounds in 3 months, or by the summer, or by my birthday, or by that wedding, I said, no, I'm not doing that to myself for however long, because I wasn't really psyched up and raring to go. You know how sometimes you're ultra motivated, but I really wasn't. So I thought, just put my toe in the water. So I made a little deal with myself. All you're going to do is go to a meeting every week. That's it. You're not going to track your food. You're not going to care if you lose any weight. None of that matters. And that's what I did. And I did that for a couple of months. I said, all right, I like my meeting. This is now worked into my schedule. It's part of my routine. I'm good with that. Now I'm going to track my food 50% of the time, 5 days a week. Okay. And, that's kind of what I did. I just did little baby steps. And once I said, all right, this isn't so bad, let me see what else I can add and what else I can add. The other thing was I continued to not, or at least to try and not be bothered each and every week by the number on the scale. Because over time, what I came to realize were a few different things. One, my body doesn't lose weight every week. My body doesn't know, Sunday's your weigh-in day. You better, lose weight today when she steps on the scale. It just doesn't work like that. And I started to notice a pattern where 1 week I would stay the same. Then the next week, maybe I would gain a pound. Then the next week I would lose a pound. So 3 weeks, nothing happened. And then boom, the next week I would lose 3 pounds. And I also thought to myself, and here was the other very big shift. I realized, and back then this was not as common a term as it is nowadays, this is not a diet. This is a lifestyle. You're not getting off this. That's how come you've always been going up and down and all around, because you, in your mind, think, oh, once I'm done, I'm done. Or once I cheat, it's over. That's not true. I used to look at other people and I would look at what they were eating and drinking and think to myself, oh, they are so lucky. I can't believe they get to look at what they're eating for dessert. But I never stopped to think that's one meal out of their week. They're not like that every meal. Otherwise, they would probably not look like that, because people are not that lucky, or most people are not that lucky. So, it was that realization, you know what? Okay, so I went out Saturday night and I ate what I wanted and it was great. And that doesn't mean that I'm a failure. That means I'm human. I enjoyed myself. Good for you. Now get right back on it.
Man, those are great lessons that you're sharing here. And I hope everybody caught this, because the one thing is you gave yourself grace. You allowed yourself to be able to eat something you wanted, but then you realize this one meal is not going to define me or my weight loss. This one meal is not going to mess me up. And with, we're coming from the holidays, and sometimes people get messed up with Thanksgiving. I'm like, well, we'll start again in the new year. And it's like, no, this one meal does not define who I am and my weight loss. Were there any obstacles or other obstacles you may have faced during this time as you were doing the small goals, as far as, trying to incorporate these healthy habits in your lifestyle?
Yeah, I was an emotional eater, for sure. Stress, and I had a lot of it. And who doesn't? Right? But I specifically, at a certain time, I had a lot of stress in my life, and I really tried to find other ways to deal with my stress. And, I enjoy exercise, not all forms of exercise. And that's another thing. You know what? I don't like to run. I don't like to, just because you don't like one thing doesn't mean you're not going to like everything. You've got to find the thing you love, because if you don't, you're not going to keep doing it. And for me, I like to dance. So I really, at that time, and for 30 years, I went to jazzercise. I loved it. I have my family of friends. And if I walked into that room stressed like crazy, there was never a time where I walked out feeling that way. And funny, the class started at 6:45 at night, which was the perfect time, because that would be the time, right, where I'd be starting to sit down and watch TV and start stress eating. But then when I went to the class and I came back, and now it's 8 o'clock, and now I'm more relaxed, and now you've felt good, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I did a pretty good job with my food today. Now I exercised. Do I really need to, sit down and have whatever it is, ice cream for me? No, I don't even want it now, so it was finding those alternate things to do to stop running to the food for, to relieve my stress.
So finding other non-eating things that helped you to be able to relieve your stress was one obstacle. Any advice you have for someone who may be before I get to that question, let me ask you this question. Now that you've lost your weight, how do you maintain your weight on a daily basis?
So I've definitely gone through times where it's been easier than not. And surprisingly enough, I must have been one of the only people who actually lost weight during the pandemic. I don't even know how. I think I was able to just be more focused. I don't know. And I was exercising in my house a lot. I don't know, whatever it was. So I've found times where the quantity of food or the quality of food was starting to get away from me. And I would get to a certain amount that I gained, and it would be the meter went on okay, all right, you're up 5. All right, that's not so bad. Okay, you'll get it off. And then now it's 7, and now it's 9, and now it's 11. And now I'm thinking, okay, you better reel it right back in. And, then I just start paying closer attention and, do the same. I don't know what, for me, I have trouble in the summertime. It's strange because, everyone's like, oh, fruits and vegetables. And I love fruits and vegetables, always have. But I think I have like this party mentality. And I'm not a big alcohol drinker, but for some reason in the summer, you're going to all these things. I'm like, oh, I'll take that fruity drink. Oh, yeah. And then a couple of fruity drinks, and now I'm eating things I wouldn't usually eat. So summer for me is my biggest challenge, but I have been able to stop and reel myself back in. So I don't know why I never was able to do that before. I think because I've seen how I've done it in the past. And so now I have that confidence a little behind me, right? As I've seen, I can maintain it. You can lose it. It's not going to be so horrible. Like, relax. You can do this and don't worry about how long it takes you.
Wow. I think that's really important to kind of get to that place where where you feel so much comfortable in your skin. What advice would you have for somebody who is starting where you start? Not quite sure if they can do this, maybe just in the beginning of their wellness journey. Any advice you have for that individual?
Well, I'd have to go with what worked for me. Start small. I mean, really, you're going to think, what is that doing, right? Even if it's, and however you're looking at it, let's just say you want to drink more water. Even if you say, I'm going to drink one more glass of water today than for the next 2 weeks. And you might think to yourself, oh, please, what's that going to do? And maybe that won't do anything. That's okay. It's amazing how quickly those little wins start to give you the confidence. And it's almost like, I'm looking over there, I have that book, and I don't know who knows this book about the little engine that could. It's like, it gives you that little confidence to just start moving up or down, whatever way you want to look at it, the hill, right? To realize, maybe I can do this. This is a little goal. I achieved it. Okay, let's move to the next one and see how I can do with that. And it kind of, if you look at it a little bit as a game, and make sure to celebrate yourself and celebrate your wins, and don't get so down if you don't do it one day or 2 days, whatever. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Just get back on it.
No, that's great. We have to give ourselves grace. We're not perfect.
We're so cruel to ourselves, right?
We are. I think I'm the worst is when it comes to like just the different thoughts that you think about. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. And I have one last question. Now that you have lost your weight, you're in a place where you feel like you're living your best life now. I guess what has changed from when you were that young girl as a child? Like, what have you gained as far as not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually? What's changed for you?
That weight loss started the ball rolling for me as far as realizing that I can do anything I set my mind to. Weight has been the biggest lifelong struggle that I've had. And it's still a journey. I'm not, I don't ever want to say it's not still a struggle, but it's not even close to what it was for 50 years of my life. And if I could do that, well, what else could I do? Using the same formula, really. Something else that I set my mind to. Start small. And I guess the book is a good example. It was something actually I never had on my heart. And it just kind of, it's a whole other podcast how that happened, I'll just say. But it started, how I can never write a book. I mean, it's the same thing. I can never lose weight. I can never write a book. Well, maybe I can. Maybe I can just write like one story. Oh, I read it to somebody. Oh, they said it was good. Oh, I really wrote a good story. Okay, now 2, 3, so it led me to expand in other areas of my life as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for coming on. Would you mind just sharing with our audience how someone can work with you? How can they find you?
Absolutely. So the best place is my website. It's DebbieRWeiss.com. The R is important. And all my contact information, program, social media, book, all of the stuff, it's all in one-stop shopping. So the best place to get information about me.
Thank you again, Debbie. And thank you all for tuning in to the Back on Track Achieving Healthy Weight Loss. If you like this episode, please share it with others, like it, and subscribe. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review. And we will see you all next time.